Welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going to be looking at Chapter 8 of Beyond Green.
Okay.
And this chapter is called Implementing and Managing Your Project.
Yeah.
So we're getting into the nitty-gritty. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. This is where the rubber meets the road. All that planning we've been talking about.
Right.
Now we got to figure out how to actually do it.
Right.
Make it happen.
So where do we even begin? I mean, just thinking about managing any project
Yeah,
can be kind of overwhelming.
for sure. And sustainability projects, they often have a lot of moving parts.
Right.
You know, you're dealing with the environment, with communities, with all sorts of unexpected challenges.
Right.
So the chapter really stresses the importance of flexibility.
Okay.
Like right from the get-go, you got to be ready to adapt.
Got it.
Because things are going to change. Things are going to come up that you didn't anticipate.
Yeah, that makes sense. So are they saying we should ditch traditional project management approaches?
Yeah. Well, they do point out that some of those traditional methods, like the waterfall method,
Uh-huh.
can be a bit too rigid for this kind of work.
Yeah.
Waterfall is all about following a linear sequence of steps,
Right.
which can work great in some cases.
Yeah.
But with sustainability, you need to be more agile, more responsive.
So what do they suggest instead?
Well, they talk about Agile and Scrum.
Agile and Scrum, those sound like something from the software world.
They are, but they've actually been adopted by a lot of different fields,
Interesting.
including sustainability.
So how does that work? Like, how do you apply Agile to something like planting trees or building an eco-village?
It's all about breaking the project down into smaller, more manageable chunks,
Okay.
and then working on those chunks in short cycles called sprints.
Sprints.
Yeah, sprints. So you're constantly checking in, reassessing, making adjustments as you go.
So it's more about having a roadmap that can evolve rather than a fixed plan that can't be deviated from.
Exactly. And this allows you to respond to those unexpected curveballs that inevitably come up.
Right, right. Because with sustainability, you never know what Mother Nature is going to throw at you.
Exactly.
You could have a drought one year, a flood the next, who knows?
It's true.
So you got to be able to roll with the punches.
You do.
And speaking of tools, the chapter also mentions project management software.
Yeah.
Like Trello, Asana, Basecamp.
Those are lifesavers.
Oh, I know.
Especially if you have a team,
Yeah,
especially if everyone's working remotely.
right. Everyone can stay on the same page without getting bombarded with a million emails.
Right. No more digging through endless email trains to find that one crucial piece of information.
Oh, right there in the software.
Exactly.
Beautifully organized.
I love it.
But it's not enough to just manage the project right now.
Yeah.
We also need to know if it's actually working.
You're absolutely right.
Like, we need to be able to see if we're making a real difference.
That's where monitoring and evaluation come in. And they have a whole section on this. They call it MELN.
LL.
Yeah, it stands for monitoring, evaluation, and learning.
Monitoring, evaluation, and learning.
Got it.
ML.
Sounds kind of jargony, I know.
A little bit.
But it's actually a really crucial part of any successful sustainability project.
Okay, so break it down for me. What exactly does MLL involve?
Well, monitoring is all about tracking your progress.
Okay.
You know, collecting data on the things that matter most to your project.
So, like, if you're planting trees, you might track how many trees have survived, how much they've grown.
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. And evaluation is about taking that data
Uh-huh.
and assessing what it tells you.
Yeah.
Like, are you on track to meet your goals? Are you having the intended impact?
So it's about making sure you're not just doing things, but doing the right things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the learning part is about integrating those insights.
Okay.
Making adjustments to your project based on what you're learning.
So it's a constant cycle of checking in, assessing, and adapting.
Exactly. And they give a really cool example
Oh, tell me.
of how this works in practice. They talk about this reforestation project
Huh?
where they used community workshops to not only collect data, but also to have people share their stories and observations.
It was like a community event.
It was, and it made the whole data collection process more engaging, more meaningful for everyone involved.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it's not just about ticking boxes on a spreadsheet.
No, not at all.
It's about creating a space for shared learning and reflection.
Exactly.
And speaking of expanding impact, let's move on to something I'm really excited about scaling up.
Yes,
It's something a lot of us dream about, right?
definitely.
Taking a successful project and making it even bigger, reaching more people.
Absolutely. And the chapter acknowledges that ambition.
Okay.
They know that a lot of people who start sustainability projects, they have that vision of making a real difference on a larger scale.
But where do you even begin with something like that?
Well, they lay out some key things to consider. First, you got to assess whether your project is actually replicable.
So can it be easily reproduced in other contexts?
Exactly. And then there's the question of resources.
Oh,
Do you have the funding, the expertise, the infrastructure to expand?
right, because scaling up can require a lot more than just good intentions.
Yeah.
You need the resources to back it up.
And then there's adaptability.
Can you tweak the project to fit different locations, different communities?
Exactly, because what works in one place might not work somewhere else.
Right.
You got to be able to adapt to different conditions, different cultures, different needs.
These are all such important points.
They are.
It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of expansion,
Yeah,
but you really need to have a solid plan in place before you take that leap.
absolutely.
So once you consider those things, what are the different ways to actually scale up?
Well, they outline 3 main pathways.
Okay.
The first is geographic expansion.
So literally taking your project to new locations,
Exactly. And then there's replication.
which is more about supporting other communities in adopting your model.
Right, you're providing them with the tools and resources they need to implement the project in their own context,
And finally, there's policy integration.
which is all about advocating for your project's successful practices to be incorporated into public policy.
So you're working to create systemic change on a larger level.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, those are 3 very different but equally powerful approaches to scaling up.
They are.
But no matter which path you choose, there are bound to be challenges. Right?
Of course. And one of the biggest ones they highlight is funding.
Makes sense. Scaling up almost always requires more resources.
It does.
So you need to find ways to secure additional funding.
Whether it's through grants, impact investments, or some kind of creative fundraising campaign,
Right.
you got to find a way to make it financially sustainable.
And then there's the importance of partnerships.
Absolutely.
We've talked about this before,
Yeah.
but it seems like collaboration becomes even more crucial when you're talking about scaling up.
It does. You need to build strong relationships with other organizations, with governments, with businesses, with whoever can help you achieve your goals.
Because you can't do it alone.
You can't. And they tell this really inspiring story
Oh, I love stories.
about a small solar water purification project
Okay.
that ended up partnering with NGOs and governments
Wow.
to bring clean water to an entire district.
That's incredible.
It is.
It just shows how powerful those strategic partnerships can be.
Exactly. And how a small project can have a truly transformative impact when it scales up in the right way.
Yeah, it's amazing what can happen when people come together with a shared vision.
It is.
And speaking of shared vision, let's talk about how to maintain the integrity of your project as it grows.
Okay.
Because that can be a challenge.
Okay.
Making sure it doesn't lose its core values, its effectiveness, as it expands to new locations and contexts.
You're absolutely right. And that's actually a perfect segue to the next part of our deep dive,
Okay,
where we'll be exploring the power of storytelling, community building, and communication strategies for scaling up your impact.
sounds fascinating. Can't wait to dive in.
Me neither.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Chapter 8 of Beyond Green.
Yeah, we were talking about maintaining the integrity of your project as it grows.
Yeah, how do you make sure it doesn't lose its heart?
Right, as it expands to new places, new people.
Exactly.
Well, the chapter really emphasizes the power of storytelling.
Storytelling.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
It might seem kind of touchy-feely,
Yeah.
but it's actually really important for connecting with people,
Yeah.
building a community around your project.
So how do you do that? Like, how do you tell a story about something like composting?
Well, every sustainability project has a story to tell.
Okay.
It's about finding that story, the heart of it.
The heart.
What's the message you want to get across?
I see.
Is it about reducing waste, creating healthier soil, building a more sustainable food system? Once you've identified that, then you can start building a narrative around it.
A narrative.
Yeah, something that will resonate with people on an emotional level.
Okay, so it's about finding the human element
Exactly.
within what might seem like a purely environmental issue.
Right. And one of the best ways to do that is to let the people involved in the project speak for themselves.
Okay.
You know, share firsthand accounts from team members, from beneficiaries, from community partners.
Yeah.
That adds a layer of authenticity that's really powerful.
It makes it real.
It does. And don't forget about visuals.
Oh, visuals are huge these days.
They are.
Especially with social media, everybody's so visually oriented.
Exactly.
So how do you use visuals effectively in storytelling?
Well, think photos, videos, infographics,
Okay.
anything that can bring your story to life.
Make it more engaging.
Yeah, a striking image of a thriving community garden or a video of people learning to build their own compost bins.
Uh-huh.
Those can be so much more powerful than words alone.
It's like showing, not just tell.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the narrative, we've got the voices, we've got the visuals. What else?
We also got to think about your audience.
Right, because what works for one audience might not work for another.
Exactly what works for a social media post might not be suitable for a grant proposal.
Yeah,
You got to tailor your story to who you're talking to.
makes sense. And speaking of social media, that's a whole other beast.
Yes.
I mean, it's such a powerful tool for reaching people,
It is.
but it can also be really overwhelming.
Yeah, there's so much noise out there.
So how do you cut through the clutter and actually get your message heard?
Well, they stress the importance of having a digital marketing plan,
Okay.
just like you would for any other aspect of the project.
So it's not just about posting randomly and hoping for the best.
No, not at all. You need a strategy.
A strategy? What kind of strategy?
Well, first you got to figure out what your goals are for using social media.
Okay.
What are you trying to achieve? Who are you trying to reach?
Right, because different platforms attract different demographics.
Exactly. If you're trying to engage younger generations, TikTok or Instagram might be your go-to.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a more professional audience, LinkedIn might be a better choice.
Okay, and what about having a website? Is that still important in this day and age?
Absolutely. Your website should be your central hub.
Your home base.
Exactly the place where people can go to learn more about your mission, your impact, how to get involved.
Okay, and they also talk about content marketing,
Yeah.
creating valuable content that will keep people coming back for more.
Exactly. Blog posts, videos, infographics, webinars.
Anything that provides valuable information and keeps people engaged.
Right, because you don't want to just be promoting your project.
You want to be a resource.
You want to be a thought leader.
Okay, and what about email marketing?
Email marketing is still super effective
Okay.
for staying in touch with your audience,
Yeah.
sharing updates, announcing events, that kind of thing.
So it's about building a list of people who are genuinely interested in what you're doing.
Exactly. And then nurturing those relationships.
Okay, it seems like there's so much to keep track of.
There is, but that's where analytics come in.
Analytics.
Yeah, most digital platforms offer tools to track your website traffic, your social media engagement,
Okay.
all sorts of metrics that can help you see what's working and what's not.
So you can adjust your strategy as you go.
Exactly. It's all about that feedback loop we talked about earlier.
Okay, I like that it's all connected.
It is. And beyond the digital realm, they also talk about traditional media engagement.
So like getting press coverage.
Exactly, because that can be a huge boost for raising awareness.
It can be.
But how do you get the media's attention?
Yeah, especially if you're a small organization.
Right. Well, it starts with having a solid media strategy.
Okay.
Identify your key messages, your target audience, the media outlets that are most likely to be interested in your story.
And then what?
Then you craft a compelling press release,
Okay.
highlighting your project's achievements or any upcoming events.
So you're being proactive.
You are reaching out to journalists with a clear and concise story to tell.
Okay. And they also mentioned having a media kit ready to go.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
A package with background information, photos, videos, contact details.
Exactly. So journalists have everything they need to cover your story.
It makes their job easier.
It does. And they also suggest media training for project spokespeople.
Media training.
Yeah, to help them learn how to articulate key messages clearly, answer tough questions, present themselves professionally.
So they're prepared for those interviews.
Exactly. And remember, building relationships with journalists is key.
Okay.
Personal connections can go a long way.
Makes sense. So it's not just about sending out press releases and hoping for the best.
No, it's about building rapport.
Okay.
Making it easy for journalists to tell your story.
And hosting events can be a great way to do that.
Yes.
Like press conferences or site visits.
Exactly. Give journalists a first-hand look at your project.
Yeah, lets them see it in action.
And answer their questions directly.
But once you've got the media coverage, how do you know if it's actually making a difference?
That's a good question, and they emphasize the importance of monitoring media coverage.
So not just to pat yourself on the back for getting good press.
Right. It's about understanding how your project is being perceived.
Okay.
Identifying any potential issues. It's all about that feedback loop we keep talking about.
So it's a constant process of assessing, adapting, refining your approach to communication.
Exactly. Now let's talk about something else that's crucial for long-term success.
Okay.
Measuring impact.
Measuring impact. Okay, so this is where the data comes in.
The chapter really stresses the importance of having a system in place
Okay.
to track your progress, evaluate your outcomes.
So you can see if you're actually achieving what you set out to do.
Exactly. And that's where those impact measurement frameworks come in.
Can you remind us what those are?
Sure, they're essentially structured ways to think about and measure the impact of your project. They help you define your goals, identify key indicators, collect data, analyze your results.
Some examples.
The logic model, theory of change, the sustainable development goals.
Okay.
And you choose the framework that best fits your project.
Got it. But it's not just about picking the right framework, is it?
No, you also need to know what to measure.
Right, because data without context is meaningless.
Exactly, and that's
Again,
where key performance indicators come in.
KPIs.
Yeah, those are specific, measurable metrics that reflect your project's impact.
So you can actually quantify the change you're creating.
Right, and the chapter really emphasizes the importance of data collection and analysis.
Okay.
You need systems in place to gather reliable data,
Uh-huh.
and then you need to analyze that data to assess your progress and spot areas for improvement.
So it's not just about collecting data for data's sake.
No, it's about using it to make informed decisions.
To improve your project, to maximize your impact.
Exactly. And they also talk about engaging stakeholders in the impact measurement process.
So it's not just a top-down thing.
No, you want to involve your community, your partners, your beneficiaries. Get their input on what to measure and how to interpret the results.
That makes sense.
And then once you've gathered and analyzed your data, it's important to communicate your findings.
So transparency is key.
It is share your impact reports with stakeholders.
Okay.
Use visuals to tell the story of your progress.
Uh-huh.
Be open about your successes and your challenges.
So it's about closing the loop.
It is.
Using impact measurement not just to assess your progress, but to communicate your results.
Right.
Engage your stakeholders. Build trust and transparency.
Exactly. Now, here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, I love when you say that.
It's about using those impact measurement insights
Okay.
to adapt and innovate your approach.
So it's not just about measuring what you've done.
No.
It's about using that information to figure out what you can do better.
Exactly. Sustainability projects aren't static.
They're dynamic.
They need to be responsive to changing conditions and new information.
So you're constantly learning and evolving.
You are. And that means being willing to experiment,
Okay.
to learn from mistakes,
Uh-huh.
to refine your approach.
And the chapter also talks about scaling up successful innovations.
Yes. If you've discovered a particularly effective approach or strategy,
Okay.
think about how you can replicate it, adapt it to other contexts,
Uh-huh.
or even integrate it into public policy.
So you're spreading the impact.
Exactly. And of course, engaging stakeholders in the innovation process is essential.
The more brains, the better.
The more diverse perspectives you have,
Yeah.
the more creative and effective your solutions are likely to be.
It's like crowdsourcing sustainability solutions.
I like that. And don't forget about technology.
Oh, technology is a game changer.
It is. The chapter encourages projects to explore how new technologies can be used to enhance their work.
Like what kind of technologies?
Well, think remote sensing tools that monitor forest health,
Uh-huh.
mobile apps that engage citizens in data collection.
Okay.
The possibilities are endless.
It's amazing. And of course, partnerships play a crucial role in innovation as well.
Yes, don't be afraid to collaborate with other organizations.
Universities, research institutions.
Exactly. Anyone who can bring new expertise, resources, and perspectives to your project.
So it's a multifaceted approach.
Is
Measuring your impact,
learning from the data,
embracing innovation,
scaling up successes.
and collaborating with others to create a more sustainable future.
It's inspiring to see how all these pieces fit together.
It is. It really is. And I think that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Chapter 8.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have from project management tools to monitoring and evaluation frameworks,
To marketing and communication strategies.
the power of storytelling,
The importance of media engagement.
and the continuous cycle of measuring impact and adapting our approach.
It's been a journey.
It has. And I think the key takeaway from this chapter is that implementing and managing a sustainability project is a multifaceted
Dynamic.
and ultimately rewarding endeavor.
It requires a blend of practical skills, strategic thinking, adaptability,
And a genuine commitment to creating a more sustainable future.
and don't forget collaboration.
Yes, collaboration is key.
We've seen how partnerships, community engagement, stakeholder involvement are woven through every aspect of this work.
Sustainability is a team sport.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's move on to the final part of the show where we'll summarize the key takeaways from Chapter 8
Okay.
and leave you with some final thoughts to ponder.
Sounds good. Stay tuned, listeners. We'll be back with more from the deep dive in just a moment. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've covered so much ground in this chapter about making a sustainability project really take off.
Yeah, it's been pretty intense.
But before we say goodbye, I want to try and summarize what we've learned. What are the big takeaways, you'd say? What do people really need to remember?
I think one of the biggest things this chapter emphasizes is that actually making a sustainability project happen is not just about, checking things off a list.
It's more than that.
It's about mindset.
Oh, okay, mindset. What do you mean by that?
It's about approaching the whole thing with a willingness to constantly learn and adapt.
So, like, be flexible.
Yeah, being flexible, being open to new information, to new ideas. Always be ready to tweak things based on what you're learning as you go.
So don't be afraid to change course if you need to.
Exactly. And also remember that sustainability, it's not a finish line you cross.
It's more like a marathon.
It's a journey. You're always learning, always finding ways to improve, always making more of an impact.
It's kind of reassuring in a way, right?
I think so. It takes the pressure off needing to have all the answers right away. You just got to be willing to keep learning and growing along the way.
And knowing that even the mistakes are just part of the process.
Totally. And I think another important point is that success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about being part of something bigger, inspiring other people, contributing to this whole movement of people who are working towards a more sustainable future.
It's like we're all in this together.
Exactly. Okay, before we wrap up completely, though, one last thing to think about.
Okay, lay it on us.
The projects that really make a difference, the ones that really stick, they're not just about putting some new practices or technologies in place. They're about building a real connection between people and the planet.
So it's about more than just the practical stuff.
Right. It's about building a sense of community, making people feel empowered, getting everyone excited about taking care of our planet.
That's beautiful. It's like sustainability is about creating a world where people and the planet can both thrive, not one at the expense of the other.
That's exactly it. It's about realizing how connected we all are and realizing that what we do has an impact that goes way beyond just us.
Well said. So as our listeners go out there and start putting these ideas into practice, I hope they remember to bring not just their brains, but also their hearts to the work.
Couldn't agree more. Let's create projects that aren't just effective, but also truly inspiring and connected to the communities and places they're serving.
All right. That wraps up our deep dive into Chapter 8 of Beyond Green.
Hope you found it useful, maybe even spark some new ideas.
I know I did. And for all our listeners out there, remember the journey towards a more sustainable future. It starts with each of us. So go out there and make a difference.
Until next time, keep on diving deep.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.